Chapter 1. Introduction. Beyond the laughs. Jerry's true psychological impact on Tom. There's a sound Tom makes that most people don't notice. It happens in the split second after another failure. After the dynamite explodes. After the iron lands on his head. After Jerry escapes through another impossibly small crack in the wall. It's not a scream. It's not even a whimper. It's nothing. Just this hollow, defeated exhale. Like the sound of someone who stopped expecting things to get better. I noticed it by accident. I was rewatching old episodes for fun, the way you do when you're feeling nostalgic, and there it was. Episode after episode. That same empty silence. And once you hear it, you can't stop hearing it. Because that silence, that's not cartoon logic. That's resignation. Tom stops reacting the way someone in pain reacts. He starts reacting the way someone in chronic pain reacts. There's a difference. And it's disturbing how accurately the animators captured it, probably without even realizing what they were drawing. Here's what made me spiral. I started counting. How many episodes does Tom actually win? Not just almost catches Jerry, I mean genuinely wins, gets what he wants, gets to rest. The number is shockingly low. But more than that, I started noticing something else. The pattern of when Jerry strikes. Jerry doesn't just defend himself and run away. There are episodes where he's already safe. Tom has given up. Tom is walking away or crying or sitting in defeated silence. And Jerry comes back. He engineers one more humiliation, one more injury, one more reminder that Tom can never ever have peace. Why? That's the question that pulled me into this rabbit hole. Why does Jerry do that? What is he getting out of it? Because it's not survival anymore. It's not self-defense. It's something else entirely. And then I found the episode that changed everything. Blue Cat Blues. 1956. Tom is sitting on railroad tracks. Completely still. Jerry and his mouse friend are watching from a distance, narrating Tom's romantic failures, his financial ruin, his complete psychological breakdown. And this is the part that made my stomach drop. Jerry's friend says Tom is waiting for a train. The episode ends with both of them on the tracks. This aired on Saturday mornings. For children. But here's what really got me. The way the episode is framed. It doesn't treat Tom's despair as a punchline that went too far. It treats it as the logical conclusion of everything we've been watching for 16 years at that point. The episode is saying, yes, this is where this was always heading. Did you think otherwise? I kept digging. I went back through hundreds of episodes looking for something I'd missed. Some moment of genuine mercy. Some sign that Jerry understood what he was doing. And what I found was worse than cruelty. I found calculation. There are moments where Jerry adjusts his strategy based on Tom's emotional state. When Tom is angry, Jerry provokes. When Tom is sad, Jerry waits just long enough for hope to return before crushing it again. When Tom finds love or acceptance or a moment of happiness, Jerry systematically dismantles it. This isn't random chaos. This is behavioral conditioning. This is someone who has learned exactly which buttons to push and when to push them for maximum psychological impact. And somehow, for over 80 years, we've all agreed that this is entertainment. So here's what we're doing today. We're not going to examine cartoon violence or debate whether kids should watch this. We're going past that. We're going to look at what happens to someone when failure becomes their identity, when punishment becomes predictable, when hope becomes the cruelest thing you can experience. Because Tom's story isn't really about a cat and a mouse. It's about what repetition does to the human mind, how powerlessness rewires your brain, why some people eventually stop trying to escape their circumstances. There's a moment coming in this video where you're going to see a scene you've watched dozens of times. Except this time, you'll notice Tom's eyes. And once you see what I saw, Saturday mornings will never feel quite the same. Let's talk about what Jerry actually did. Chapter 2. The Foundation. Understanding Tom and Jerry's dynamic. Before we talk about what this does to Tom, we need to understand how it happens. Because here's the thing most people miss. Jerry doesn't fight back randomly. He's not just reacting in the moment, throwing whatever's nearby, running wherever there's space. There's a rhythm to it, a pattern. And once you see it, you realize something unsettling. Jerry waits. Not always. Not in every episode, but often enough that it becomes noticeable. He waits for a specific moment. Not when Tom is charging at full speed, fur standing on end, eyes wild with predatory focus. That's when Jerry runs, hides, defends himself. That makes sense. No. Jerry strikes after Tom stops. Watch it again. Any episode. Tom chases Jerry into a corner, gets hit with something heavy, stumbles backward in a daze. The natural thing, the survival thing, would be for Jerry to disappear, to stay hidden, to let the threat reset and calm down. But that's not what happens. Jerry stays nearby, just out of sight, watching, waiting for Tom to shake off the stars circling his head, waiting for that moment when Tom's ears droop, when his shoulders sag, when he takes that first defeated step away from the fight. That's when Jerry comes back. A banana peel on the stairs, a bucket balanced on a door, a rope tied across the hallway. Small things, calculated things, things that don't defend, they re-engage. And here's what makes it worse. Tom never seems to expect it. You'd think after hundreds of encounters, Tom would learn to keep his guard up for an extra 30 seconds. But he doesn't. Every single time he allows himself that brief moment of relief, that split second where he thinks it's over. And every single time, Jerry makes sure it isn't. There's an episode where Tom is crying, genuinely sobbing, sitting on the floor, surrounded by broken furniture and his own failure. Jerry is safe. He's in the wall. The coast is clear. Tom isn't even looking in his direction anymore. Jerry comes out anyway, not to escape, not to gather food. He walks right up to Tom, does one more thing, I won't spoil which episode, you'll know it when you see it, and walks back into the wall. Tom doesn't even react, he just sits there, like he knew it was coming. That's not cartoon logic, that's conditioning. And this is where things stop being funny, because repetition doesn't just hurt in the moment. Repetition changes the brain, it changes what you expect from the world. It changes whether you believe fighting back is even worth it anymore. So, what does this pattern do to someone? Let's find out. Chapter 3: The Anatomy of Psychological Warfare. Something changes in Tom around the middle of the series. It's not obvious, not dramatic, but it's there. He stops celebrating. You know those moments in early episodes where Tom thinks he's won? He'd puff out his chest, grin at the camera, maybe do a little victory dance. Pure confidence, pure joy. That disappears. By the later episodes, even when Tom catches Jerry, actually gets his hands on him, there's no celebration. He just holds on, tense, waiting, because he knows what's coming. He's learned that winning isn't the end. It's just the setup for the next loss. Watch his eyes. That's where you see it clearest. Tom starts looking around before he relaxes. After every small success, after every moment where Jerry seems gone, Tom's eyes scan the room, the corners, the ceiling, the furniture. He's checking, always checking. He moves differently too. There's this hesitation that creeps into his body language. He'll reach for something, a piece of cheese Jerry dropped, a doorknob, even just walking across a room, and he pauses, just for a fraction of a second. Like his body is asking permission from the universe before it acts. That's not caution. That's fear of existence itself. And then there are the flinches. Tom starts reacting to things that haven't happened yet. A door closes normally, no trap, no trick, just a door, and Tom jumps. A floorboard creaks under his own weight and he freezes, bracing for impact. Nothing comes, but he braced anyway. Because at some point, Tom stops reacting to Jerry. He starts reacting to the idea of Jerry. That's the shift. That's when it stops being about survival and becomes about something else entirely. Tom isn't fighting an opponent anymore. He's fighting inevitability. He's fighting the certainty that no matter what he does, no matter how careful he is, the pain is coming. You can see it in how he handles hope. Early Tom, he'd try a new plan with genuine optimism. This could work. This might be the one. Later Tom, he goes through the motions. Sets. The trap. Waits. But there's no light in his eyes. He already knows it won't work. He's doing it because what else is there to do? He stops expecting success. He starts expecting confirmation of failure. And that's when something truly disturbing happens. Tom begins to move like someone who's been wrong before, every time, about everything. His posture curls inward. His steps become quieter, smaller, like he's trying to take up less space in the world, like he's apologizing for existing. There's an episode where Tom just walks away, mid-chase. Jerry's right there, vulnerable, distracted. Tom could grab him. Instead, he turns around and leaves. Not out of mercy, not out of exhaustion, out of preemptive surrender. He's given up on the possibility that things could be different. And once you give up on that, once you stop believing that effort matters, that trying changes anything, that's not a personality trait. That's damage. So, if this is what repetition does to someone, was Jerry just defending himself, or was he teaching Tom exactly who he was allowed to be? If you enjoy calm storytelling like this, I've added a free Audible trial in the description, only if it helps you relax. Chapter 4. Tom's Repeated Failures, the Sisyphean Nightmare. Let me tell you about the math. I went through and counted. Across 164 theatrical shorts released between 1940 and 1967, Tom achieves a genuine, unambiguous victory in approximately 7 episodes. 7 out of 164. That's a 4% success rate, but even that number is generous. Because in most of those 7, Tom's win is either immediately undone, shared with Jerry in some forced truce, or revealed to be hollow. He catches Jerry, but his owner punishes him for the destruction. He gets the girl, but loses her by the next scene. He finds peace, but it lasts exactly as long as the final frame. So, realistically, Tom never wins. Not in any way that matters, not in any way that lasts. Now imagine that as your life. Imagine waking up every single day with a job you're supposed to do, a purpose you're supposed to fulfill. You're a cat. Jerry is a mouse. The equation is simple, ancient even, written into your DNA. This should be the most natural thing in the world. And every single day, you fail. Not because you're lazy, not because you're not trying. Tom tries everything. He studies, he plans. He builds elaborate mechanisms that would make engineers jealous. He adapts. He learns from previous mistakes. He approaches the problem from every conceivable angle. And it doesn't matter. The effort doesn't correlate with the outcome. That's the cruelest part. In a fair world, in a logical world, trying harder means better results. You learn, you adjust, you improve. Slowly, maybe. But you move forward. Tom doesn't move forward. Tom moves in circles. He's Sisyphus, but worse. At least Sisyphus knew the boulder would roll back down. At least the terms were clear. Tom keeps thinking this time might be different. This trap is better designed. This plan accounts for the previous failures. This time, finally, he'll succeed. And then he doesn't. The boulder doesn't just roll back down. It explodes. It crushes him. It humiliates him in a new and creative way he hadn't even imagined was possible. But here's what makes it truly nightmarish. Tom can't quit. He can't leave the house. He can't retire from being a cat. He can't opt out of his nature. And beyond that, he's punished for not trying. His owners yell at him, kick him out, threaten him. The other animals mock him. His romantic interests lose respect for him. So he's trapped between 2 impossible positions. He must keep trying, and trying will never work. That's not a challenge, that's a psychological prison. And Jerry knows this. Whether consciously or not, Jerry understands that Tom is locked into this cycle. That Tom has no choice but to keep coming back. And that means Jerry can do whatever he wants because Tom will always return for more. There's no escape clause, no mercy rule, no moment where the universe says, okay, he's suffered enough. The suffering is the point. Think about what this does to your sense of agency. Agency is the belief that your actions matter, that you can influence outcomes, that you have some control over your life. It's fundamental to mental health, to hope, to the basic ability to function. Tom loses that completely. Every failure reinforces the same lesson. Nothing you do matters. You are not in control. Your efforts are meaningless. The universe is not just indifferent to you, it's actively rigged against you. And when you learn that lesson deeply enough, when it's beaten into you through repetition over years and decades, something breaks. Not loudly, not all at once, quietly, permanently. You stop trying to win. You start trying to just get through it, to minimize damage, to survive until tomorrow when you'll have to do this all over again. Tom stops being a character with goals. He becomes a character with symptoms. And if you look closely, if you really pay attention, you can see exactly what those symptoms are, and they're disturbingly familiar. Chapter 5. Jerry's Evolution, from Victim to Psychological Tormentor. Here's where it gets complicated, because Jerry didn't start this way. In the earliest episodes, 1940, 1941, maybe into 1942, Jerry is genuinely afraid. You can see it in how he moves. Frantic, desperate. His eyes are wide, his body language screams panic. When he fights back, it's chaotic. Grabbing whatever's closest. No plan, just survival. That Jerry makes sense. That Jerry is a mouse being hunted by a predator. Everything he does is justified, necessary even. But somewhere along the way, something shifts. Jerry gets comfortable. It happens gradually. His movements become less frantic, more calculated. His escapes aren't desperate scrambles. They're choreographed, precise. He starts setting up his defenses before Tom even arrives. He's not reacting anymore. He's anticipating, and that's fine. That's learning. That's adaptation. You'd expect prey to get smarter over time, but then it goes further. Jerry starts experimenting. There are episodes where Jerry has multiple escape routes and he chooses the one that leads Tom into the most pain. Not the quickest exit, not the safest path. The one that makes Tom suffer more. There are moments where Jerry is completely safe, hidden, out of reach, already won, and he comes back. Not because Tom is still a threat, not because he needs something, but because the opportunity to hurt Tom is there, and he takes it. Watch The $1 Million Cat. Tom inherits a fortune on the condition that he doesn't harm any animal, including mice. Jerry learns this, reads the telegram himself, understands that Tom is now completely powerless. What does Jerry do? He torments him. Systematically, methodically. He hits Tom with objects, destroys his belongings, humiliates him repeatedly. And every time Tom starts to react, Jerry points to the telegram, the reminder, you can't touch me and I know it. Tom eventually snaps, rips up the inheritance, and chases Jerry out of pure rage. Broke and broken. And the episode ends with Jerry laughing. That's not self-defense. There's another moment, I won't say which episode because it hits harder when you stumble onto it yourself, where Tom is crying. Not cartoon crying. Real crying. Hopeless, defeated sobbing. And Jerry doesn't just leave him alone. Jerry walks up, looks at him, and does one more thing. One more small, unnecessary cruelty. Why? What is that for? What purpose does it serve? Tom isn't a threat in that moment. He's not chasing. He's not scheming. He's broken. And Jerry breaks him a little more. Now, here's the uncomfortable part. We still root for Jerry. Even knowing this, even seeing this pattern, we still want him to win. Maybe it's because he's small. Maybe it's because the show trained us to see him as the underdog. Maybe it's because Tom is a cat and cats are predators. So whatever happens to him feels cosmically justified. Or maybe it's because we've never stopped to think about what it means when victory stops being about survival and becomes about domination. Jerry doesn't just want to be safe. He wants Tom to know he'll never be safe. And there's a word for that kind of behavior. For when someone learns exactly how to hurt you, when to hurt you, and makes a habit of it. We just don't like using that word when the person doing it is the one we've been cheering for. Chapter 6. Signs of Tom's psychological deterioration. Now we need to talk about the signs, because they're everywhere once you know what to look for. And some of them are so explicit, so undeniable, that you have to wonder what the animators were thinking. Or maybe they knew exactly what they were doing. Let's start with the most obvious one. Blue Cat Blues, 1956. Tom is in love. He's trying to impress a female cat named Toodles. He buys her gifts, flowers, candy, eventually a car. He's spending money he doesn't have, going into debt, bankrupting himself for a chance at affection and acceptance. Jerry shows up with a wealthier mouse, also courting a female mouse. They're mirrors of each other, Tom and Jerry both competing for love, except Jerry wins. His mouse gets the girl. Jerry drives off in a fancy car, happy, successful. Tom loses everything. Toodles leaves him for a richer cat. Tom is left alone, broke, heartbroken. And this is where the episode becomes genuinely disturbing. Tom sits down in the middle of a railroad track. Just sits there, staring ahead, completely still. The narration, yes, this episode has narration, explains that Tom has lost everything. His money, his love, his hope, and now he's waiting for a train. You hear the whistle in the distance, getting closer. And Tom doesn't move, doesn't react, he's given up. Completely. The episode ends with Jerry's mouse leaving him too, and Jerry sitting down on the tracks next to Tom, both of them waiting. The screen fades to black as the train whistle grows louder. That's not subtext. That's not implied. That's explicit suicidal ideation in a cartoon that aired on Saturday mornings for children. And it's treated not as a shocking deviation, but as the logical endpoint of Tom's existence. The episode is saying, this is where all of this was always going. But Blue Cat Blues isn't an anomaly. It's just the most obvious example. The signs are there throughout the entire series if you're paying attention. Tom's physical appearance deteriorates. In later episodes, he's thinner. His fur is more ragged. His eyes have dark circles that weren't there before. These aren't artistic choices made randomly. They're visual indicators of chronic stress and exhaustion. His behavior changes too. There are episodes where Tom exhibits what can only be described as dissociation. He's going through the motions, but there's no presence behind his eyes. He sets a trap, waits for it to fail, accepts the consequences without emotion. Mechanical. Hollow. He isolates himself. In episodes where other cats appear, friends, potential allies, Tom increasingly pushes them away or loses them. He stops seeking community. He stops trying to connect, because connection means hope, and hope means disappointment. There's a recurring visual motif that's easy to miss. Tom checking his reflection, in windows, in mirrors, in puddles. And every time he looks at himself with this expression that's hard to describe. Not vanity, not curiosity, recognition of something he doesn't like. He sees himself becoming something he didn't intend to be, and he can't stop it. Then there are the fantasy sequences. Tom daydreams about success, about happiness, about being loved and respected. These sequences become more elaborate and more desperate as the series goes on. They last longer. They're more detailed. Because his real life has become so devoid of those things that his mind has to manufacture them just to keep functioning. And when he snaps out of these fantasies, when reality crashes back in, watch his face. That's not just disappointment. That's grief. He's mourning a life he'll never have. There are episodes where Tom drinks milk excessively. Now, you could argue that's just a cat thing. But the way it's framed, Tom alone in the dark, drinking directly from the bottle with this desperate, compulsive energy, it reads as self-medication, as trying to numb something. The show even depicts Tom as paranoid, jumping at shadows, overreacting to neutral stimuli, seeing threats where there aren't any. That's hypervigilance. That's what happens when your nervous system has been activated so many times that it stops knowing when to turn off. All of these signs, the isolation, the dissociation, the self-medication, the deteriorating appearance, the fantasizing, the hypervigilance, the suicidal ideation, they're not random character quirks. They're textbook symptoms of someone being psychologically destroyed. And it happens slowly enough that we never noticed it was happening at all. Chapter 7. The Real Victims. Tom's Emotional Needs. The cruelest thing about Tom's situation isn't the physical pain. It's that he wants so little. Watch what Tom is actually trying to achieve in most episodes. He's not trying to kill Jerry. He's not trying to dominate the house or establish some reign of terror. Strip away the chase, strip away the violence, and what you find underneath is heartbreaking. Tom just wants to be good enough. For his owners, for Toodles, for the other animals, for himself. In episodes where Tom has an owner, and there are several across the series, his desperation for their approval is palpable. He doesn't chase Jerry out of predatory instinct. He chases Jerry because that's his job. That's what he's supposed to do. That's how he earns his place in the house. And every time he fails, he's punished for it. His owner yells, threatens, kicks him out into the cold, sometimes literally throws him out of the house. And Tom returns every time, trying harder, hoping this time he'll finally be good enough to deserve basic shelter and affection. That's not a predator. That's someone desperately trying to meet impossible expectations. Then there's Toodles, the female cat Tom is in love with across multiple episodes. Watch how Tom behaves around her. He's gentle, nervous, vulnerable. He brings her gifts. He tries to impress her. He wants so badly to be seen as worthy of love. And Jerry sabotages it every single time. Not because Jerry is defending himself, not because Tom is threatening him in those moments, but because Jerry has learned that Tom's happiness is a button he can press, an opening he can exploit. Tom's romantic pursuits become another avenue for humiliation, another way to reinforce that he doesn't deserve good things. There's an episode where Tom is simply trying to sleep. That's it. That's his entire goal. He's exhausted, curled up in a basket, asking for nothing from anyone. Just rest. Jerry wakes him up, repeatedly, for no reason other than he can. And Tom doesn't even fight back after a while. He just accepts it. Because of course, he can't have rest. Of course, peace isn't allowed. Why would it be? Even his relationship with other animals in the house, Spike the bulldog, the various birds and goldfish, Tom is constantly positioned as the threat, the problem, the one who needs to be controlled. But if you actually watch what happens, Tom is almost always reacting, not initiating. He's protecting his food, he's doing his job, he's simply existing in the space he's been given. And he's punished for it anyway, because the narrative has decided who the villain is. And once that role is assigned, nothing Tom does can change it. Good behavior doesn't earn him anything. Restraint doesn't protect him. Trying to be better doesn't matter. He could be perfect, and it still wouldn't be enough. That's the tragedy at the core of Tom's character. He's not asking for victory, he's not asking for dominance, he's asking for the most basic things: safety, approval, love, rest. And the universe he lives in has decided he doesn't deserve any of them. So he keeps trying anyway. Because what else can he do? He keeps hoping that maybe, just maybe, if he tries hard enough, sacrifices enough, endures enough, someone will finally decide he's worth something. Chapter 8. The Psychological Impact. Real-world parallels. Here's the part where this stops being about cartoons. Because everything we've been describing, the patterns, the symptoms, the deterioration, it's not fictional. It's documented. It has names. It happens to real people in real situations. And the parallels are uncomfortable. In the 1960s, psychologist Martin Seligman conducted experiments on learned helplessness. He placed dogs in situations where they received electric shocks they couldn't avoid or escape. At first, the dogs tried everything: jumping, barking, scratching at the walls. But after repeated failures, after learning that nothing they did mattered, they stopped trying. Even when the conditions changed, even when escape became possible, the dogs would just lie down and accept the shocks. They had learned at a fundamental level that their actions didn't influence outcomes. That effort was meaningless, that they were powerless. Tom exhibits this exact pattern. He stops trying new strategies. He accepts punishment before it arrives. He remains in situations where escape is possible because he's learned that escape isn't really possible, not permanently, not in any way that matters. This isn't just about dogs or cats. This applies to humans. To people in abusive relationships who stop leaving because they've been conditioned to believe leaving won't work. To employees in toxic work environments who stop reporting problems because nothing ever changes. To anyone who's been told through repeated experience that their agency is an illusion. The mechanism is the same. Teach someone that resistance is futile, and eventually they'll stop resisting. Then there's the concept of intermittent reinforcement. It's one of the most powerful tools in behavioral conditioning. You don't punish someone every single time. You don't reward them every single time. You randomize it. Sometimes Tom's plans almost work. Sometimes he catches Jerry briefly. Sometimes he has a moment of peace. And that's worse than if he failed completely every time. Because those occasional near successes keep him invested. Keep him believing that maybe next time will be different. Maybe this time he'll finally succeed. The hope becomes the trap. Casinos use this principle. Abusive relationships follow this pattern. The occasional win, the brief moment of affection, the rare success. It keeps people locked in far more effectively than consistent punishment ever could. Jerry, whether intentionally or not, has created a perfect intermittent reinforcement schedule. And then there's chronic stress. When your body is in constant fight or flight mode, when you never fully relax because you're always anticipating the next threat, it destroys you, not dramatically, not all at once, slowly, from the inside. Your sleep deteriorates, your immune system weakens, your ability to regulate emotions breaks down. You become hypervigilant, reading danger into neutral situations. Chapter 11. The rare moments of empathy. But here's what makes this even more complicated. There are moments, rare but genuine, where Tom and Jerry act like they actually care about each other. Snowbody Loves Me is one. Tom is thrown out into a blizzard by his owner. He's freezing, starving, left to die in the snow. And Jerry, safe inside the warm house, sees this. He could stay inside. He could let nature take its course. Instead, he brings Tom inside, warms him by the fire, feeds him, takes care of him. In The Truce Hurts, Tom, Jerry, and Spike the Bulldog sign a peace treaty. They spend the entire episode as friends, genuinely. They share food, they help each other, they laugh together. For those 7 minutes, you see what their relationship could have been. There's joy there, real affection. And then something happens. Usually a resource conflict, food or territory, and the truce shatters. They go right back to fighting. But for that brief window, you saw the alternative. Blue Cat Blues has a counterpart people forget about. In some episodes, when Tom is heartbroken over Toodles, Jerry shows something resembling sympathy. Not mockery, not opportunism, just recognition of genuine pain. These moments matter because they reveal something crucial. Neither of them is locked into this dynamic by nature. Tom isn't a mindless predator. Jerry isn't a sociopath. They're both capable of empathy, cooperation, even friendship. The cruelty isn't inevitable. It's not hardwired, which makes it worse somehow. Because if they can be kind to each other, if they can recognize each other's suffering and choose compassion, then every moment they don't becomes a choice. Jerry chooses to come back when Tom is defeated. Tom chooses to keep chasing even when he knows it's futile. They're both locked in a pattern they could break but don't. Maybe because the show won't let them. Maybe because the audience expects it. Maybe because they've been doing this for so long that they don't know how to be anything else to each other. There's a tragedy in that. In knowing that connection is possible but watching them choose conflict anyway. In seeing glimpses of who they could be and then watching them revert to who they've always been. It's like watching two people in a toxic relationship who have good days. Days where they remember why they stayed, where they glimpse the possibility of something better, but then fall right back into the same destructive patterns. Those moments of empathy don't redeem the relationship. They make it sadder. Because they prove that the suffering isn't necessary, it's just habitual, and somehow that's even harder to watch. Chapter 12. The lasting damage, long-term psychological effects. So what happens to someone after years of this? After decades of the same cycle? After every lesson has been learned, every pattern internalized, every hope systematically crushed? They don't recover. Not really. Not completely. Trauma doesn't just disappear when the threat ends. It rewires you. changes the architecture of how you interact with the world. And the particular kind of trauma Tom experiences, chronic, repetitive, inescapable, leaves specific scars. First, there's hypervigilance. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth understanding fully. When you've been hurt enough times, your nervous system stops distinguishing between actual threats and potential threats. Everything becomes suspicious. Every situation could be the next attack. Tom can never fully relax. Even in moments of peace, even in episodes where Jerry isn't actively tormenting him, Tom moves like someone waiting for the other shoe to drop. His body holds tension that never releases. His eyes scan constantly. His startle response is permanently activated. That's not personality. That's injury. Then there's the trust issue. Tom can't form healthy relationships because he's learned that vulnerability leads to pain. Every time he opens up, to Toodles, to other cats, even to his owners, that vulnerability is weaponized against him. So he stops opening up, he stops trusting, he keeps everyone at arm's length because distance is the only safety he's ever known. Except that creates a different kind of suffering, loneliness, isolation, the ache of wanting connection but being too damaged to accept it. There's also what psychologists call a negative self-schema. It's the story you tell yourself about who you are. And Tom's story, after all this, is clear. I am someone who fails. I am someone who deserves punishment. I am someone who will never be good enough. That belief becomes self-fulfilling. He stops trying because he believes trying is pointless. He accepts mistreatment because he believes that's what he deserves. He can't recognize opportunities when they appear because his internal narrative won't allow for the possibility of success. He's not just defeated by external forces anymore. He's defeated himself. And perhaps the most insidious effect, learned helplessness extending into every area of life. It's not just about catching Jerry anymore. It's about everything. Tom stops believing he has agency in any context. He doesn't fight back when his owner mistreats him. He doesn't defend himself against Spike. He doesn't pursue his own happiness. Because why would he? Nothing he does matters. The universe has made that clear. So he exists, but he doesn't really live. There's a concept in trauma psychology called complex PTSD. It develops not from a single traumatic event, but from prolonged, repeated trauma, especially when escape is impossible. The symptoms include emotional dysregulation, negative self-perception, difficulty with relationships, and a persistent sense of hopelessness. Tom checks every box. His emotional responses are either extreme or completely flat. He swings between rage and resignation with nothing in between. His sense of self is defined entirely by his failures. He can't maintain meaningful connections. And hope, genuine hope, has become foreign to him. He's not recovering between episodes. Each one compounds the last. The damage accumulates. And because the show operates on a reset button where physical injuries disappear but behavioral patterns remain, we see a character who heals on the outside but is rotting from the inside. By the later episodes, especially by the 1960s shorts, Tom isn't even the same character anymore. He's a shell, going through motions, existing out of habit rather than desire. And the darkest part, he can't imagine anything different. This isn't just his reality, it's his identity. He is the cat who loses, who suffers, who endures, and nothing, not time, not rest, not even rare moments of kindness, can fully undo what's been done to him. Chapter 13, Conclusion, Reframing Our Childhood Memories. So where does that leave us? Sitting here, years or decades after we first watched these cartoons, looking back at something we thought we understood, and maybe feeling complicated. Because the truth is, Tom and Jerry isn't ruined now that we see this. It's not evil. It's not something that should be erased or canceled or hidden from children. That's not the point of this. The point is awareness. Understanding that the entertainment we consumed as children was more layered than we realized. That beneath the bright colors and the funny sound effects, there were patterns being reinforced, dynamics being normalized, lessons being taught about who deserves empathy and who doesn't. We don't have to retroactively hate Tom and Jerry. We can still acknowledge its place in animation history, its technical brilliance, its cultural impact. We can still remember the joy we felt watching it. But we can also see it clearly now. We can recognize that Jerry's actions went beyond self-defense. That Tom's suffering was disproportionate to any threat he posed. That the show, intentionally or not, documented a cycle of psychological destruction. And maybe that awareness changes how we watch it now. Maybe we notice Tom's eyes in a way we didn't before. Maybe we feel uncomfortable during moments that used to make us laugh. Maybe we root for him, just once, to catch a break. That's not ruining the show. That's growing up. It's looking at the media we consumed and asking, what did this teach me? What patterns did I learn to accept? What biases did it reinforce? Because Tom and Jerry is just one example. This applies to so much of what we watched, read, absorbed as children. The heroes we rooted for, the villains we dismissed, the suffering we learned to find entertaining, and those lessons carried forward into how we judge people who fail, repeatedly, how we react to someone stuck in a destructive cycle, how much empathy we extend to people we've decided are predators or threats, or somehow deserving of what happens to them. Maybe Tom's story is a mirror, a way of seeing how we treat real people who are trapped, who are suffering, who keep trying and failing and being punished for both. Maybe it asks us, when do we decide someone has suffered enough? When do we stop finding someone's pain entertaining? When do we recognize that repeated failure isn't a character flaw? It's a symptom of an impossible situation. You don't have to stop loving Tom and Jerry, but you also don't have to unsee what's there. The laughs were real, the nostalgia is valid, the memories matter. But so does this. Both things can be true. And now you get to decide what you do with that.